formed Rhode Island Coalition for Transportation Choice. One of the big opportunities for transportation investment and economic investment in the state of Rhode Island is the opportunity to invest in the rail infrastructure that exists in the most densely populated portions of our state. We have the opportunity to have the Northeast Rail Corridor that serves Amtrak and MBTA. We also have the Providence and Worcester freight rail line. There are two regional or statewide planning documents that talk about land use planning and transportation planning into our future. And both of these documents really distinctly articulate that we have to do a better job of concentrating intensive land uses around existing transportation infrastructure. In the land use plan, you can see the areas in gray and red and purple. These are the areas where there is the significant development. These are urbanized areas, and these are the areas in which we will have future infill growth. You can see radiating from the Providence metro area all of the major transportation corridors. These are mostly highways and rail and bus lines. In northern Rhode Island, in the Blackstone Valley, we have the Northeast Rail Corridor, the freight rail line, and then we have major highway, interstate, and arterial routes that connect the surrounding Blackstone Valley communities to the Providence metro area. The Blackstone Valley Corridor is a projected growth area, and the state land use plan over the next 15 years anticipates that there would be significant growth in the communities throughout this valley and throughout that area. The opportunity for transit-oriented development is significant, and one example or case study of where this is happening is really in Pawtucket, which is in a gateway position to the Blackstone Valley coming from the Providence metro area, which is really identified by the half-mile radius. Within that half-mile radius and within that quarter-mile radius, it's articulated by a 5-minute walk. The secondary shed is articulated by a 10-minute walk. But within this area lies the Pawtucket urban core of the historic downtown, and then within that area there's the future commuter rail stop, the terminus for the RIPTA bus rapid transit system, Interstate I-95, and the river. Within this immediate area, the city has planned intensive land uses, high-density development, urban infill, redevelopment, all within that primary and secondary shed. So you see three major modes of transportation choice, walkability, and a mix of uses. We have the opportunity to integrate this style of land use development that creates high density development around transportation infrastructure throughout the state of Rhode Island to service the major population centers and conserve land that is currently undeveloped. The vision for commuter rail, this graphic really shows the potential for what we have as well as what we could have. The blue line indicates a proposed intrastate commuter rail service which uses the freight rail line to connect Woonsocket to Cumberland and Pawtucket into Providence and on down to Warwick, where there will be a true intermodal station with bus, commuter rail, and a major airport all being integrated together. Recently, RIPTA announced its RIPTA Metro study, which was a year-long effort to really look at the future service needs, and it's the first step into a statewide metro study. The area that was included in this study is in green, and you can see that it really ends at the Pawtucket Central Falls area. It doesn't really extend into the other areas of northern Rhode Island. But this plan outlines several improvements that would result in $126 million in capital improvements for bus rapid transit, additional parking lots, expanded service, trolley car system, and so forth. But you see the area in red throughout the Blackstone Valley in northern Rhode Island This plan doesn't really significantly address that area, hence the need for more regional collaboration in planning for the future investments. And just so you can see the overlay of the proposed commuter rail, you see how the intrastate line is really one of the major linkages for northern Rhode Island into the Providence metro area for commuter rail. Over the last several years, RIPTA has experienced a 33% increase in ridership, and this really correlates well with peak gasoline prices. So as gasoline prices increase, the propensity to use mass transit also increases. One of the problems we have is that mass transit is funded with a gasoline tax. So as gas gets more expensive, people use less of it and opt to use mass transit, but there's less funding to fund mass transit, and that was the problem we had in 2008, which led the government to create a blue ribbon panel to really look at transportation funding. And this blue ribbon panel report produced a document that outlined several recommendations to deal with transportation funding in Rhode Island. And you can see in this graphic, in thinking about transit-oriented development, we have to first outline the major transit infrastructure. We then overlay some land use and where we're going to have intensive land uses. And then we develop transit-oriented development zoning, which encourages intensive high-density development around these transportation nodes, where we increase density, we promote multifamily housing, mixed-use development, decrease parking requirements so that we have fewer surface parking lots, and we really create sustainable communities that can thrive. And in developing a plan for northern Rhode Island, you can see the groupings of these cities and how they fit geographically, and how we can start to think about linking them in a true regional plan that capitalizes on these investments. So the argument for a regional planning body really is related to these key points. We need to integrate local land use with regional transit network. We need to capitalize on transit-oriented development. We need to advocate for funding for regional impact projects like the intrastate commuter rail proposal. We need to increase multimodal transportation opportunities. We want to reduce vehicle miles traveled for a cleaner and safer air quality and a better environment. We want to improve the quality of life, creating more opportunities for people to walk to where they need to go, creating a quality place. We want to connect northern Rhode Island to Boston and Providence and to our airport. And ultimately, we're just trying to make our communities more sustainable. In the immediate priority, we need to secure funding for the Pawtucket Central Falls commuter rail stop. This is a gateway project. This is a very important piece of the intrastate proposal, providing a junction and interchange for passengers originating in Woonsocket and Cumberland to get to Boston. We need to secure funding for continued planning for this intrastate commuter rail project. The next phase of this would be an alternatives analysis and preliminary design. We need to do a better job of integrating transit-oriented development and regional land use planning for the corridor. And this would really involve really looking at the zoning ordinances for all of the communities and developing these major nodes for higher intensive and higher density uses. And then we need to prioritize regional impact investments for inclusion in the state's long-range plan, the Transit 2030 plan, and the Transportation Improvement Plan. And these are fiscally constrained documents that really outline our expenditures for transportation going into the future. At this point,